Hey, what is going on, guys? Today we're taking a look at the MechaGodzilla kit here from Aoshima, and to be precise, this is the third version of this kit, which is the Kiryu with Shirasagi Full Complete version. So it comes with some really cool accessories, and it's just going to be a little bit different from previous versions of this kit, so you may want to check out which version you may prefer. But as for this version, I gotta say, it's pretty awesome, and there's not really a whole lot different between the actual MechaGodzilla kit itself, between the multiple versions. The backpack's a little bit different, I think the chest is a little bit different. The face is also a little bit different parts for some of them, so not really going to be a whole lot different, but it's definitely a pretty fun kit and pretty large too. I'll give you guys a size comparison here in a little bit. If you missed the live build of this, you can go back and watch that. I did build this live streaming here on YouTube, so you can go back and check that out if you want to see the build process. It didn't really take all that long to build. It's got a good amount of parts in there, but the construction was pretty straightforward. It didn't really have any fitting issues or anything like that. Plastic quality seems good. There's some seam lines here and there on the kit, and I'll talk a little bit more about those here shortly, but overall, very interesting kit, and like I said, very fun to build something different and so unique. So as always, guys, as we get into it, just big thank you to ACKS Store for their support, and thank you to Aoshima for sending this kit out to me. So if you want to check out the kit for yourself, we've still got a few left in stock over there at ACKS Store. You can save 10% off this and everything else there in store using the coupon code ZakuAurelius10 to save 10% off anything there. And let's just first take a closer look around at some details and some of the articulation of the kit here first, shall we? Alright, so as you guys may have seen in the unboxing, underneath the armor, this does use some soft rubber parts to help with the articulation so that this can move smoothly, while the part there underneath will be able to bend with the armor or moving around that. So the use of the soft rubber parts, honestly, I'm not too into. I really would have preferred that it was just all hard plastic, like these parts down here around the legs there. That's just hard plastic, but then there's the other soft rubber part there. But ultimately, I think what would have been maybe the best option would have been if they would have included both. So like those parts that are in soft rubber, they would have also included a just regular hard plastic version of those if you didn't really care too much about having that to help with the articulation. There are a couple of other parts, like there's this wire part that goes there, and then there's the little hose here down on the side of the leg as well, which are parts that are really cool to have those in soft rubber because they're like little kind of wire tube kind of parts that could just connect a couple areas. As for the mouth, it opens up and closes really nicely. I love the fact that it closes really smoothly and tightly. There's no like gap with it being like sort of almost closed like that. It closes up all the way like that and looks fantastic. Just the detail around on the head, it looks so nice. You have the clear yellow part for the eyes, and then behind the eyes you have just this regular silver plastic. So because there's silver up behind the eyes, they show really nice and brightly. And we do also have an alternative part in clear red. If you prefer to have the eyes in red, you can use that. So the articulation here in the neck is really nice. It can look side to side like that. It can look up, it can look down, all the way down to there, and just looks really cool. Over here in the chest, you have 3 doors which will open up like that, side to side and down, and you have this part in the center there, which I remember, if I remember correctly, is the absolute zero, something like that, right? That is this freezing thing. I'm not sure about the lore of this, sorry guys, so I can't speak to that, but if I remember correctly, someone mentioned that during the live stream. Also, just real quick about the seam lines on this, as you'll see some of them here on the neck starting to pop a little bit. There's seam lines around on this kit, and some of them I think are the kind that you could get away with not doing anything about, like these here on the neck. Other ones like these here on the forearm are the seam lines that you probably won't want to get rid of. But that said, these are the ones that will cause you trouble because these parts here for the forearm are encasing the parts there for the elbow joints, so you'd have to do a little bit of modification or masking or something for that if you're going to be painting that black part in a different color. But anyway, as for the shoulder, you have a little bit of movement around for that. It's basically just on a ball joint set pretty deep inside there, so you have a rubber piece in between like the arm and the body there as well. But it's not really going to give you a whole lot of movement. And up, you can bring the arm up to about there, and down to there. You have some rotation here at the elbow joint. The elbow itself will bend about 90 degrees there, and then the wrist is just on a ball joint as well. For our hand options, we have 2 different options for the hand, and they're really not very easy to tell the difference between them. They're almost identical. But you have one open hand and then one slightly more open hand. It's like a little bit more kind of open. It's not really all that different, but they're okay. Down here in the stomach section, you have this middle section between the upper body and the waist, so that will kind of give you 2 points of articulation for a really far forward stomach bend like that, or then back to there, and then you have some side to side movement here. These parts, these kind of 2 parts on the side, are just connected on ball joints at the back of the body, so those can kind of move out of the way as you move the body around. But I find it's a little bit annoying because as you're trying to pose this, it gets to be where it's not straight, and I want it to be straight, and it's kind of hard to get it straightened out. And if you're hearing parts falling off while I'm maneuvering this around, it's these fins on the back, because it's kind of hard to hold this kit without knocking these out accidentally. It's easy enough to just pop them back in, and obviously if I'm not doing a review, I'm not going to be handling it quite like this, but that just so you guys know what's coming out there in the back. But anyway, then down here at the hip section, the legs will move out to the side like that. You can also, these are just connected on a ball joint as well. So because there's that soft rubber part inside, that will kind of move a little bit out of the way for you to move the leg forward and back and just kind of move that around on a ball joint. Now we do also have this flap here on the side, which will open up like that. And here you can plug these optional just kind of like thruster rockets here on the side of the leg, which I guess are just meant to just kind of like pop out there, maybe for when it's in towing mode or when it's just flying anyway, I suppose. But then here at the knee, you've got a little bit of bend there, but it's not really going to be a whole lot. As you can see, there's not really a whole lot much that you can do with that. But this new part here at the top, this little kneecap part, will also move separately like that on its own. Down here at the ankle, you in theory have a little bit of like side to side and forward and back bend, but it's kind of really hard. It's the kind of ankle joint that Bandai uses for their figurized standard kits, and I don't really like it because it's kind of difficult to work with sometimes. In order to get it to rotate, you have to kind of bend it and then rotate it and then kind of put it back, and it's just a little bit tricky to work with. But it will give you a little bit of articulation there at the ankle. This part also seems like it should move up and down a little bit also, but it kind of just doesn't really want to move much. Up underneath the feet, you have some nice detail there as well, and just the little separate parts there for the claws and the feet is pretty nice. And there's a lot of great detail all around everywhere. You can see there's just nice detail everywhere. Now here for the tail, we have 1, 2, 3 sections of soft rubber in there for the tail, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sections that are just regular plastic with no rubber part inside there. So you can see you will have to paint in some black in between these sections there, but ultimately it gives you a ton of articulation here in the tail, and you have this little separate piece there on the end, which unfortunately has some hollow gaps in the bottom side of that piece. I'm kind of disappointed in that. How you have this, the rest of the kit, the quality is all really good, and then just this small little thing to have this little unsightly bit there. It's kind of a shame they didn't give that separate piece to make it so you didn't have any hollow spaces in there, but still the tail all moves around really nicely. You can rotate that and get that curved around, and once you have everything all lined up, it looks really fluid. You can't really tell mostly that it's separated into a bunch of different sections, just the way that it moves and articulates nicely between all the sections there. It looks pretty believable. As for the fins on the back, in order to attach the backpack, you'll have to remove a couple of these. So you have to remove one here, here, and this one up here in order to attach the backpack. The backpack just looks like this. You have some nice detail on that all around here. And you do also unfortunately have some seam lines on this though as well. You'll have to get rid of those. The cannons here will move up and down, and this just plugs onto the back pretty simply and pretty securely. Just plugs on there in place of those 3 fins that we removed from the back, and it looks pretty awesome. Now you do also have these weapons that will plug onto the side of the arm as well. So these just plug onto there, and you've got some option parts for these. This little hose here on the back will plug into the back of the elbow there, and it comes out very easily. You'll definitely want to glue that in place just because it's not really too secure in there. Now for the option parts for this, basically you have the long form and the short form of these, I guess just sort of beam guns there on the arm. So I guess this is maybe in use and not in use. So those will just attach onto the arm like that, and they look pretty cool. Now you do also have one other accessory for those, and that is this sword blade, which can come out of there. So you can choose to have this attached into there or not, but it just slips into this part here at the front, and there you go. That just sits in there like that for a cool melee weapon that you can use as well. So I mean, as you can see, for being this big bulky beast, the articulation of it is not too bad, and you're actually able to do some pretty cool posing with this. Now obviously I don't think that you're really going to want to do anything like super too dynamic with the posing anyway. You're not going to put in some like acrobatic like karate poses or anything like that. It's just supposed to be a big giant mechanized version of Godzilla, and whenever we don't really see Godzilla really doing too much in terms of like really super crazy dynamic poses. So the articulation that this has, I think, works really well, and as you can see, it's also able to balance really quite well as well, thanks to just having very large chunky legs and very huge feet. Having this balance, you don't need to use the tail as like a third leg, basically a tripod, to help it balance. You can have the tail totally up and airborne. It's able to balance perfectly well on its own like that. So just in terms of the overall looks of this kit, I think the molding, the styling, the detailing, the proportions, everything on this, and just the articulation that it has allows it to look really super cool. Now, just straight out of the box, it's definitely could use some detail painting. If you're not gonna want to do a complete paint job on this, I would definitely recommend just doing a little bit of panel lining in there, bringing out some of the details, doing some detail painting, just filling in some little areas that maybe need some paint. doing something like that, and then just maybe giving it a coat of top coat would also help a lot. Now, the molded silver looks pretty good if you guys don't want to paint it. Some people were asking if it has the same kind of swirl effect that we typically see in the molded silver and gold plastics from Bandai, and yes, it does. It seems like not quite to the same degree though, but it also seems like there's not quite as much silver injected into this as we sometimes see from a lot of Bandai kits. So overall, I think just the color and quality of the plastic as it is, just straight out of the box, looks pretty good if you're not going to paint it. Now, as I mentioned before though, there are some seam lines around on the kit that you probably are going to want to get rid of, some that you probably don't really need to, but the ones that you are going to need to get rid of may be a little bit challenging just because of the design of the parts and the design of the kit, so it's going to be up to you how much you really care about doing that. But it's the kind of kit that I think is going to look really awesome whether you decide to go pretty minimal in terms of the extra work on it, or if you really want to go to town and just doing like a ton of work on this to really make it look its best. It's going to look awesome either way. Let's take a look at the Shirasagi now. There's 3 of them, and I've built them in the 3 different configurations that you can build these in. So one is with the landing gear down. So here's what that looks like. Basically, you have a few parts that go around here on the bottom. You can see the little hatches that you'll lift for making the different configurations, but with the landing gear down, looks pretty cool. You have the clear part for the canopy there, but there's nothing inside there, so there's not really much to see underneath the clear part. That said, of course, the details on this, everything looks fantastic. Really, aside from white, the only other parts you have from the clear part then is just these dark colored parts there at the back for that little detail there. But again, the detail looks really nice. You don't really have anything in the way of seam lines on this either, so just painting these up should be relatively simple. Now, the attachment point for the base is under this peg here that will just plug onto the base. But for that, we'll use this other version. So this is what it looks like just with the landing gear folded up. So it's just closed up here, here, and here with these other hatches, which these parts are easy enough to remove. If you want to change these, you just pull those out like that. You can just swap the parts easy enough. But if you just remove that cap, and remember we've got 2 of these stands included with the kit. You've got little screws that will hold this together, so you've got 1, 2, 3 sections here. But because you've got 2 of this, you could make it even longer if you want, or shorter. It's up to you how long or short you want to make this connector, but this is just how it shows to make it according to the manual. So it's got just points of articulation there. And the plane doesn't really weigh much at all, so it'll just sit up on top of there pretty simply like that. And it's easy enough to just pose. Now really with this though, you can really only change it, the up and down angle of this. You can't change it to like a rotated angle, unfortunately. So that's the only thing I don't really like about this. It would have been cool if you could, I guess you could just turn the plane on here and rotate it like that. So I guess never mind, I take back that point. You can pose it just fine like that. So posing it with this base works well enough like that. And for the third version of this, this is for the version that you'll attach the hoses onto, the cables for attaching this onto Godzilla for the towing form of this. Now it has this little part that folds out like that. That little dish there in the center feels very loose in there, so just make sure you put some glue on that if you're planning on displaying it in this way. And then the tube that you have included will just connect up on there. You have to connect 2 of these onto there. Now as for posing this up, because you will have only 2 bases and just because the main kit is so heavy, it's just not going to work. The only way this is really going to work is, as I mentioned in the unboxing, if you have like the Godzilla like mounted on some sort of base and then you just run some wire through this, you have some to make this rigid so it's not loose, to make this rigid and then basically have the planes stood up on top of the wire like that is one way that you could simulate the actual towing form. Otherwise, I don't really know how. It'd be definitely a trick to be able to make it actually do that. As for this wire itself, you have 50, just a little over 50 centimeters worth, so you have plenty of tube here included for that. So if you did want to go through and make this into some sort of diorama with the airplanes, with the Shirasagi here actually towing the MechaGodzilla, it could be possible, but it's definitely going to take some work and not something that I'm able to do to demonstrate for you guys at this point in time. And just for a quick size comparison, here it is compared with your average 1/100 scale Gundam Master Grade kit, and as you can see, it's pretty large. It's definitely going to be taller than most Master Grade kits. And also just a reminder of the waterslide decals that we get included with this kit. These are the set for the Shirasagi aircraft, and then we have some decals for the MechaGodzilla itself here, and the decals look really, really nice on this one. But so that's going to do it here on the full complete version of the Kiryu with Shirasagi MechaGodzilla kit here, and it's expensive, but you definitely get a really awesome kit out of this. It's big, you get some really cool option parts for MechaGodzilla itself. You've got the 3 Shirasagi jets there as well, and then you've got the stands for those and some cool option parts for those as well. So you definitely get a lot of stuff in the box. And if you're a fan of MechaGodzilla at all, I think this is something that you're definitely going to enjoy, and it's definitely going to be an impressive kit up on the shelf. It looks awesome, so definitely can recommend this to any of you guys if you like the look of this. I would definitely recommend checking out at least one version of this. Maybe you don't like this particular version, maybe you like one of the previous versions. Those previous versions are also a little bit cheaper because they don't have quite as much stuff in the box, so it may be something that may be a little bit more appealing to you. But if you guys do have any other further questions or comments, feel free to leave those down below, and just thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye bye.